everybody, welcome back to a new episode of the Unrequested PD podcast. I'm your host, Francisco Faticati, and today I have the pleasure to have with me Ms. Eunice Canales. Ms. Eunice Canales has a fantastic story. She's been a leader, she's been a campus leader as a department head, she's been an assistant principal, she's been a mentor to teachers. She's actually one of the teachers that helped me grow into the profession because, as you know, because I've shared before, like this isn't. What I picked initially. Like, like education wasn't my first choice. So, and I got into the place, and I know you and Frank and Delilah and everybody in the team just kind of had this environment of growing together that was beautiful
Right? It
to
was like a good
experience.
friendship. You need those work
Yeah,
colleagues.
I know it was amazing.
Yes.
It was amazing. It was an amazing environment. I don't think honestly that I would have survived if it weren't for the team or for the group that you
Oh,
guys
thanks,
already had,
Fatih.
and I
Yeah.
just kind of stuck myself to into the
You're like, these are the people I need to be with.
the people I knew to hang out with. Yeah, Ms. Canales, thank you so much for being here
No,
with us
thank you for the
today.
invite. I'm truly honored to be here.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so
Like,
proud of you all the
oh,
time.
oh my
Because I saw
god.
you when you were little.
Oh, thank
You were
you.
my kid, but you were Frank's kid.
Yeah. Yeah. But and I talk a lot about, and we're going to talk a lot about your career. But I want us to get to know Eunice Canales, not just a professional,
Okay.
but who is Eunice Canales as a person.
Well, I mean, I was like, you want to hear about my hobbies? I was telling Fatih that it's past my bedtime. Well, I think like it I guess my background was just I grew up really poor and humble.
Mm-hmm.
I'm born in Mexico. I came to the United States when I was 1 years old. So some people are like, that doesn't
It
count.
doesn't count.
But Spanish was my first language.
Okay.
So I came to from Reynosa all the way to Houston, and we
Oh
grew up in the
wow.
Fifth Ward. So I was from a Fifth Ward kid. I grew up in just a really poor area.
Mm-hmm.
First with my grandparents, we all shared a house, and my grandpa had 14 kids,
Yeah.
and about 10 of them still lived at home,
Wow.
and it was a big family. We were all crowded there for the first few months.
Mm-hmm.
Then my dad finally was able to get us a little house, and I mean, we grew up in poverty, you name it, like all
Mm-hmm.
the roaches and
Yeah.
the rats, not mice, rats.
See.
And that was just my background, but I never needed anything. Like my family was great, and my dad always pushed hard work, and we grew up with just those humble beginnings. Um, and then when I moved to McAllen, I was 12 years old, and I never realized that I was poor until I went to McAllen, and they made me know that I was poor when I moved to the Valley, right?
Yeah.
Because we were going to school with all these people from Monterrey,
Mm-hmm. What do
and
you mean I get my lunch for free?
I was like, I guess I'm poor. So it was really hard to acclimate to that. But my mom just growing up would really push education like she never. But I think it's the traditional Mexican household
Mm-hmm.
where like you're not sick, you just don't want to go to school. Like you're gonna go to
See.
school, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
So I was a perfect attendance kid.
Yeah.
My mom really instilled education, and it came because my mom herself didn't finish school. I think she got up to fifth grade. She lived by the Cuartel de Soldados there in Reynosa. And back in the day, they were doing really bad stuff to little girls that were walking to school.
Mm-hmm.
So my grandparents are like, it's too dangerous for you to go to school, so you're not going to go.
Yeah.
So I think because of that, my mom would tell us that story. I didn't really understand it then. Of course, like now that I'm an adult, I understood what she meant, that it was dangerous.
Yeah.
Um, and she's like really pushing me for to go to school. And at first I didn't understand at first she understood the basic stuff up to the fifth grade,
Mm-hmm.
but then things got a little bit too difficult, and she couldn't help me anymore, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I remember crying over like algebra 1 work, like my workbook, and I was like, Mom, I
Yeah.
don't get this.
Yeah.
And she was just like, you know what, there's always a solution for everything, and who can help you? Because she
Mm-hmm.
always would talk to me about getting the proper help. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, I think my algebra teacher, Miss Reese, can help me. And she's like, okay, well, we're gonna wake up super early, you're gonna go to school, you're gonna go to tutorial, and we're gonna work this out. So I think like education was just really pushed by my mom mostly. She always says just do your best, but
Mm-hmm.
I always kept that in mind. And seventh grade, I did meet like a wonderful teacher. He still works for Idea Public Schools.
Does he?
Yeah, Martin Winchester.
Wow.
I was his first year student. And he was a Teach for America guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know how they come over here
Yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
from
And
all
save
over the
us.
nation, and they say,
I'm sorry, sorry, sorry.
not save us. They help us. And college was never a conversation that I had, not even from my teachers at PSJA until, well, before seventh grade, until I met him. And he's like, "You're really smart. You
Mm-hmm.
can go to college." And I went to UT Austin, and I was like, "This is where I want to go." Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I really like pushed through the college thing. That was something for
Mm-hmm.
me, and I really wanted to be a teacher just like him.
Did you?
Yeah, an influential teacher just like him. So I think I got that first. Like, of course, I had great teachers. I
Mm-hmm.
remember like Miss Reese, who like helped me with math, obviously,
Yeah.
because I hate it. But Mr. Winchester was the one that really pushed me and believed in me and said, "Hey, you can go to college. Doesn't matter your background. Like,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter that you're poor. Doesn't matter you're a first generation. Your parents didn't go to school. They had
Yep.
elementary education. Like, it doesn't matter. So you can do it." And with that, like, that's the push I needed. And I just worked really hard. I
See.
knew because of people like Mr. Winchester and my mom that, I mean, education was
Mm-hmm.
my ticket out of poverty, right,
See,
of the
see.
cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And I just worked really really hard in school and just AP classes,
Yeah.
and I became a little like the top 10.
Nice.
um but I didn't have a green card.
Yeah, yeah, and that's so interesting and so important for people to hear. Like I keep saying it, um, people need to hear stories like yours.
Hmm.
People need to hear because we stay stuck hearing success stories of no one that sounds or looks or has lived or
Hmm.
experiences, and because I can guarantee you there's many kids out there who are going through a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so hearing stories like yours that look at you and where you're at and the things that you're doing, like you should be really proud of yourself, and I'm pretty sure you
Oh
are.
yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
I
Yeah.
know, and I can't I can't imagine like how proud your parents are of the things that you have accomplished. Like,
Yeah.
so it's important for you to tell your story. So, but tell me how you decided to be a teacher. How does that come up?
It wasn't. I knew I wanted to be a teacher since I was 12. When I was in
Wow.
seventh grade, I was like, This is what I want. I want to do. I want to make people feel the way that Martin Winchester made me feel."
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, so, and I saw the way that he would teach. And I remember like one parent night, like my mom, he didn't understand and speak a lick of
Yeah.
Spanish, but he had a little note card. So there was a note card where it's like, he has potential, right?
Yeah.
Like in Spanish, tiene
Mm-hmm.
potencial,
See.
which is the kids that, are
See.
struggling. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's a card that was positive, and he's all like, "Su hija es bien inteligente," or "Your
Yeah.
son is very smart."
Mm-hmm.
So he learned those Spanish words that way he can communicate with parents. and
No.
and I liked that effort. So I saw a
Mm-hmm.
teacher just really go above and beyond to not only like connect with their kids, but also to like motivate them, right, and push them to break what they're used to,
Mm-hmm.
right, and explore life that is scary, right, like
Mm-hmm.
college life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's when I decided, like, you know what, like I like and he was an English teacher too.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I want to be an English teacher just like Mr. Winchester. So that was a moment, and you couldn't change my mind. And that's what I studied as soon as
Nice.
I was able to finish high school. And um STC, like I said, I didn't have a green card, but I always pushed. Like, I'm so, I guess, grateful for STC
Mm-hmm.
because STC reached out to me. Like, they did the backwards thing, and they're like,
Nice.
"Hey, we're going to offer you a full ride called the Valley Scholars. We're going to pay for your college, and then you transfer over to UTRGV.
Yeah.
We don't care about you not having a green card. Like, we're
Nice.
going to do everything to help you. You just need to commit to us."
Awesome.
But they're like the only ones that like reached out, because I didn't know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
Like in high school, like, do
Mm-hmm.
you remember who helped you?
No.
Like,
No.
you have to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
now that's why I think I'm in that position too with this
Mm-hmm.
role, right?
Yeah.
Like they shouldn't just figure it out. Like, that's why
See.
there's adults in at school to help them.
Mm-hmm. And that's very important
Yeah.
because, like you're saying, we didn't we didn't have. I mean, there
No, we didn't
were
have that
guidance
support.
counselors, but like as far as how to help us, like
Yeah.
I know my friends got helped, but as far as how,
Why though? Why do you think that is?
well, I just don't think
Like, why your
that
friends and not you?
the difference in number one, I didn't have a social security number. That's a,
Hmm.
and I don't think that people at that time were prepared to support people like me,
Yeah.
because that wasn't the norm. Like the norm wasn't for
And see,
kids.
you were years after me, right? Like,
And that was
this was
yeah.
2001
Mm-hmm.
for
I'm talking
me.
2008.
And that's
And
a 7-year gap, and we
mhm.
still couldn't get it right for those
In
kids
a
that
different district. So we're
right.
not saying specific
Yeah.
districts. I just don't think like at that time where when we were experiencing that, um, our people were ready to handle a kid who wanted to do something else,
Mhm.
rather than join the workforce or do something that's not academically inclined.
Mhm.
I don't think that we're ready at that point.
Yeah.
And so I mean it fills me with pride to know that we did it, that we did things, that we went somewhere, that we
Mhm.
looked for things. Dr. Mauro Tijerino was here a couple of weeks ago. He
Mm.
called it grit, and we had that grit
Yeah.
to push, right, because we wanted it. But statistically it shouldn't have happened.
Right.
I think I think that's why it happens, because they weren't ready. Like they weren't ready for that yet. I know
Mhm.
right now there's better systems in place that
Mhm.
are helping kids achieve their dreams, whether that's going to college or that's being a welder or being a barber, whatever their
Mhm.
dream is.
Yes.
um, I am very proud of the way that public schools are handling that now.
Yeah,
um,
for sure. For
mhm,
sure. Because back when we were there, there was definitely, you had to figure it out. And you were lucky if you had a sibling that, attempted college,
mhm.
right?
See.
Um, but STC provided that support, and I'm super proud that a lot of our kids are still choosing that university, and it's
Yeah.
grown like it's
Mhm.
huge now. Like we
See.
took the kids to the Mid Valley campus yesterday, and I was like, wow, I remember when it was just like that little oh sorry, I'm touching the microphone. It was that little basketball like opening thing, and it was a
Uh-huh.
technology building, and now there's like an actual building for everything. So I was just like, wow, it has really grown, and
Yeah.
the McAllen campus is huge too. But there's institutions like STC that really do venture
Mhm.
out and look for kids just like
Mhm.
me and you, and provide
Mhm.
that support when other people couldn't, right?
See? And so if the dream was teaching, how do you choose to do something else?
Well, I think after 12 years of teaching, because this is my 20th year. Like I say it and I'm just like, wow. After 12 years of teaching, I was a department head for a while. I was co-department head. I transitioned to a new campus. I just like really, I was just hungry for more.
Mhm.
I wanted to learn more. And yes, I had a leadership role like at the high school,
Mhm.
but it wasn't the leadership role that I wanted. I still
Mhm.
wanted to grow as a leader.
Oh, because you left.
I live
Like you left the campus.
I left
Okay.
the
All right.
campus
All right.
and the district, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Um, and I wanted to grow, and
Mhm.
I thought that it was just going to take me longer
Yeah.
to grow there, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And I just wanted to like venture out and learn and figure things out on my own. It was scary,
For sure.
right? Like it's a
Yeah.
transition, right? It was super
Mhm.
scary for me, but I just decided to go for it. I think in life you just have to take those risks and power through, have that
Yeah.
grit that you said,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
Continue to have that grit and just a new role.
Mhm. Because so you went from campus teaching
Hmm.
to what was your next role?
Assistant principal of instruction.
Really? And how
Yeah.
does that work? Like, what do you do?
So at this public charter school that I went to, an assistant principal of instruction does a lot of the what a dean would do at traditional schools, but also what an AP would do because there is no dean.
Okay.
So you deal with the instruction side, you deal with the discipline side, you deal with everything that would be separated in different
Mhm.
components. Um, I did that for 7 years.
Okay.
I also
Wow.
led different initiatives in different schools because I was at
Mhm.
two public charters
Okay.
in the 7 years that I was assistant principal.
Okay.
And I definitely learned a lot about just the structure of public charters and the difference between a public charter and a public school, and what their missions are because, they do differ.
Mhm.
But definitely I grew as a leader. I just had a conversation with an old English teacher that was Miss Barrera. You remember
Oh
Miss
yeah.
Barrera?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And we were at a Region 1 conference, and I was like, Miss Barrera, like, I was really different when I left the high school, right? And that was in 2013.
Mhm.
And she's all like, very different. And I was like, I think I wasn't the best leader. I think I was not a good person. And then she's like, no, you were different, in a very nice way. I think because I was just so like hyper focused and I didn't
Mhm.
understand like if I can do it, everyone can do it. Like I didn't understand what motivates people.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand like that people learn at different paces.
Mhm.
And I can't assume that everyone's going to pick up something fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't learn that until I started to manage adults,
See.
right? Because you have patience for children,
Mm-hmm.
extreme patience for children, but where's that extreme patience for adults,
Exactly.
right?
And how
And
do you differentiate the instruction for adults?
right,
Yeah,
and
because
it's hard,
uh huh,
right? Because you're like,
because
well,
those kids will become adults. So
yeah,
if they need
but you show
differentiated
more
instruction,
grace to children,
mm-hmm.
right? You
Yeah.
show more grace because
Mm-hmm.
they're children, they're learning, their brains are still developing, but you tend to forget that when it comes to adult, like that grace that you should be showing to an adult
See.
that is still learning,
Mm-hmm.
right? Especially those first year teachers that are still
Mm-hmm.
adapting to their new role. They're not going to get it right away. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to struggle. And
See.
as a
See. See.
leader, that's our job to make sure that they are supported and they understand what their role is and how to execute their
See.
job.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned extreme
Mm-hmm.
patience for adults then.
Good. Good. Because I think back to my first years as a teacher, and I remember a couple of things, a couple of keywords. One was we're gonna desegregate the data. Like I have no idea. I had
What is
never
that?
heard that word before. Like
Right, right.
like desegregate, right? So and the other one was that we're gonna dissect the teaks. Like I don't even know what teaks stand for.
Yeah. You're like, I
So,
barely got that word down. Yeah,
but people just expect
yeah.
new teachers to know
Like
things,
all
and
this vocabulary, all this jargon, right? That's
mm-hmm,
just educationally centered. You don't use these
mm-hmm,
words every day.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, no, definitely. Like and at the public charter, there was a lot more words it's like poof go over their head, and I was like, okay, let me speak it in a different way because that's not you're using the language that's in the like whatever evaluation system you have,
mm-hmm,
but they don't know what that translates in the classroom. Like
yeah,
scaffolding,
yeah,
what is that, right? Like what does that look like? You
mm-hmm,
can't just use that word without showing an example and
mm-hmm.
modeling what scaffolding looks like.
See.
And I think with the public charter I learned just to do that. Like I cannot tell a teacher to do something
Mm-hmm.
without showing the model, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
showing them how to do it. And a lot of times I I never undermined my teachers. I would
Mm-hmm.
ask them, do you mind if I teach your class today?
Yeah.
And the teachers learned the best that way. I would take over the class.
Mm-hmm.
The teacher, I was like, all you're going to do is, and one of my teachers, his name is Braylon Bellino. He's like, that was the best thing that you ever could do for me.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I was like, you're just going to do a T chart. You're going to focus on my actions and how the students react,
Mm-hmm.
or student teacher actions
See.
versus student actions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all he did for one period. And just with that, like, I was like, now it's your turn, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then I gave him feedback on that and how he executed the same lesson.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of administrators are also afraid of going back into the classroom
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
and
sure.
modeling,
Mm-hmm.
right?
For
Especially
sure.
because these are children that I don't have a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with.
Yeah.
Because as an administrator, it's really hard
Mm-hmm.
to build relationship with
See.
these children, and unless they're in your office,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
Those disciplined ones,
You get to know them.
yeah,
Yeah.
you get to know them really well. But like traditionally, the other kids, like you don't know them, so a lot of people are uncomfortable, like teaching in a class.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's
I think that should be a requirement.
I think so
Okay.
too.
I think
I used to
assist.
sub for my teachers.
I
That
think
was normal.
assistant principals should have a requirement. You gotta serve in the classroom at least one time every 6 weeks. Like you
Yeah,
gotta teach a class. Um, and I know it's funny, and we joke about it, but like we get to see many people in leadership positions who are so far away and so far detached from classroom
right. Like
instruction.
when have they been
Hmm.
in the classroom?
And we have to also think that things change,
Mm-hmm.
and like maybe when you were teaching things were different, kids reacted differently, so you have to stay on top, especially if you're an administrator that's in charge of providing instructional feedback to teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to stay on top of the current trends in instruction,
Inexactly.
yeah,
Like
in
when
instruction strategies.
what engages the kids now,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's venturing out to technology with
Mm-hmm.
things that you're not
Because
comfortable
that's
with.
what we're competing with.
Yeah.
We're competing with kids who are on Instagram, uh, watching reels.
Mm-hmm.
We're competing with TikTok, which is 10 seconds
Yeah,
or
they have the
less,
attention span
right?
of an
So
ant.
we're competing with all these apps that pushes information into our
Yep.
kids in 10 seconds or less, and in 10 seconds or less, they get to laugh, they get to cry, they get to learn something, they get to
Mm-hmm.
experience all these range of emotions in 10 seconds or less, and and then we come in and we try to talk to him for 45 minutes.
Yeah,
Like it's
like the
uh,
whole lecturing part, right?
hmm
Like that,
so
it's not.
yeah, yeah. So we also have to adapt as instruction leaders and as people in instruction onto how are our kids learning
Mm-hmm,
now. Um, so that leads me, I guess, to my next question because I'm very interested. You talked about two schools in your charter public
mm-hmm.
and the school that you were before. So that leads me to
Because I
believe
came
that
back to the old school.
that you're talking about three principals already.
No, I've had in the 20 years I've had 10 principals.
10
10
principals.
principals, five females and five males. Because I was thinking about that.
Wow.
In just 1 year, I had, or what is it, 3 years? I think it was three principals.
Mhm.
Because the turnover is pretty high when it comes to principals too.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like you're held under a microscope, and
Mhm.
if things don't go well for your campus, you get switched out.
Mhm.
And that's just how
So
it
12
goes.
of those years have been in as a classroom teacher,
Hmm.
8 of those,
Seven. Well, I
7
guess technically this year I can still count this one as a teaching year because I did teach one class.
okay.
But my role is CCMR teacher or an advisor, so
Okay.
it's kind of like a counseling role.
Okay.
But then I helped out with a class for TSI preparation.
Awesome.
So I had a class of 28 seniors this year.
Nice.
Um,
Nice.
and I and it was it's a college prep course that's like
Mhm.
module based,
See.
but I didn't like that thing, so I kind of like with the permission of my administration team, I revamped it and
Mhm.
I did a lesson cycle for
But your
college
admin
bridge
team, you mean
teachers.
Frank?
Yes, I had permission. I was like, "Can I train the teachers, please?" I was like, "Because there's so much that this program can do." And I basically like I taught the small group model just briefly,
Mhm.
but small group with our kids is so beneficial, especially with our sped kids or our EBs. Like,
Mhm.
and I would have like a little schedule. Sometimes I would have two kids small grouping at the
Mhm.
same time, or I had one at a time, or
Mhm.
I would divide my time.
Mhm.
Sometimes it was all day with the same
See?
one.
You see? Mhm.
And the kids at first were hesitant. They were kind of like embarrassed because I think this might be a new notion to them or
Yeah.
something. Like
Yeah,
who
because I
like
think I think the whole idea of small group, although it's huge and
hmm
it impacts kids
hmm
tremendously, is not as widely seen anymore in secondary settings. I see
no,
it a lot in elementary.
like we see it also in the sped setting, right? Like where they do the small group pullout, but we don't see it in the classroom as
Hmm.
much.
Like
And
in
I'm just
general ed.
like why? Like why aren't we doing small group? Because it does take good classroom management though. Like and having clear expectations. So
Hmm.
while my kids are doing their work, they know what's expected of them because
Yeah,
I'm going to be working one on one with this child that's lacking,
for
right?
sure.
That needs
Hmm.
help.
See.
Um, but they knew the expectations,
Hmm.
and I made sure that they knew it before I started teaching separately,
Hmm.
not off to the side, but like I was at my desk with the
See.
student next to me
Hmm.
with all these like digital anchor charts posted because it wasn't
Yeah.
my classroom, right? Like
Uh-huh.
I'm borrowing it. I'm a floater.
Mm.
So you remember floating?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was a floater, so I would just bring up some digital anchor charts and
Okay.
do the small group there with my children.
See. So hey, you get another experience. You get
Hmm.
to try
And I'm
something
very
else.
blessed because technically I wasn't supposed to have this role. Like my role is the counseling part, right? But like, well, they needed another English teacher, and I
Hmm.
happen to be a certified English teacher.
There you go.
And Frank
And
knows.
you're a team player. You're a team player.
And I was like,
I
let's
think
do
that's what
it.
matters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, let's do it. And
Wait. So how do you? How does? Oof, I need to make sure that I word this one correctly because I
mhm.
want to get the most out of this question.
Okay,
How do you adapt to 10 different principles with 10 different personalities with 10 different leadership styles?
yeah.
Like, like how do you adapt in 20 years? How do you adapt to so many?
I mean, it's hard at first. Like, definitely some principals started off stronger than others, like with
Mm-hmm.
there's just their word choice and the way that they would address their staff when it came to expectations.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the ones that I did really well with are the ones that I got to meet on an individual basis, like in a private check-in,
Mm-hmm.
and they laid out what they expected from me. Like when I knew what was expected of me and how they work, like their style and how they knew how to like, because one of the questions that this public charter was how do you look when you're stressed out?
Mm.
And for me, it's like, yeah,
Wow.
I was like, when I'm stressed out, you'll see it.
See.
Like, I move too much. I'm
Mm-hmm.
anxious. Like, I'll voice it. I am feeling a little overwhelmed right now.
Yeah.
Like I always was not afraid to voice like what the problem was.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'll say I just need a little bit of time. Like I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. I was like, but then just give me 5 minutes, and then
See.
I would just come. So I would explain that. I was like, sometimes, yeah, like when I'm stressed out, like I'll say I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling a little overwhelmed, but I gather my thoughts and I gather my next steps, and I'm able to push
Mm-hmm.
forward, right? Um, but a lot of those are the ones that I was real successful with when it was clear what they expected of me and they respected the
Mm-hmm.
way that I worked,
Yeah.
right? Um, and definitely did not micromanage me
Yeah.
because I don't do well with micromanaging.
I don't think anybody does.
No one
I
does.
don't
No
think
one
anybody
likes
does.
that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I was talking to somebody on the phone today. Actually, I was driving by. I was driving back from work,
Mm-hmm.
and it's campus life. Things happen in the campus, and sometimes people just need somebody to listen,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was listening to some of the things, and I thought about because they were having issues with somebody, and it's so important for us to understand that some people can handle coaching in their job and other people need management.
Mm-hmm.
And although nobody likes to be micromanaged, some people need to be
Mm-hmm.
managed.
They
Like,
do.
so,
I agree. And it just depends on how they're doing with the way that you like. I guess it depends on the way that they start when you start coaching them,
mm-hmm,
right? Like you kind of gauge if this person's going to need more and
mm-hmm,
more coaching or
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 just
just
straight up like
right.
this is what we're
Like, you
gonna
know
do.
what, I'm going to live in this classroom
Yep.
today.
This is what we're doing. Like, I need to see this and this and this and this, and this is how you're gonna run
Yeah.
your class, and that's it. Yeah, because some people can be coached into being the best version of themselves, but unfortunately, we do find people in the profession who just don't want to. And
Mhm.
we find them, and they're rare, but you find them.
But I think
Um,
we also need to do a better job at building a culture of coaching, right?
absolutely.
Like I think that if we're visiting the classrooms a few
Hmm.
times, that's that's not building a culture. A
Hmm.
culture is visiting there like habitually, right?
See.
I know it becomes harder, right, when there's like a
Hmm.
larger school with so
See.
many teachers to manage. At one point I did have 21 teachers and it
Hmm.
was difficult to manage.
Hmm.
Even 21. I could
See.
imagine in a public school when you're managing a whole
Yeah.
a whole bunch of a whole
Yeah.
department,
Hmm.
right? Like
Because it's about joining them in their planning process too.
right.
Because there's so many things that you could I don't want to say avoid, but you can prevent
Mhm.
um that you don't have because by the time you go and observe and you observe something not perfect,
Right.
some kids already lived through it.
Mhm.
So some kids already got that not so great instruction. But if you join the planning period, then you can avoid all those situations because you're part of the planning with them. So when you go and do your observations,
Mhm.
you're not observing their ability to plan. It's more of a how can I coach you to execute the
To
plan that we came
execution.
to
Mhm.
that we came together that we came up with it together because I'm part of the planning process. Now I'm
Mhm.
going to help you in the execution of it.
Right.
How are the kids seeing it? Because we know the material is great. Like, how are the kids going to see it? Um, how and you don't have to say names, and I don't want you to get in trouble or
This is where I'm
anything.
gonna drink a little bit of water.
I don't want you to get in trouble or anything, but um having so many principles, it intrigues me. I've had one, two, three in my entire career.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
One.
really good.
Yeah. Let's see, one, two, three. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. One, two, three principles in my entire career.
Mhm.
And I mean now in my line of work I get to work with a lot of principles. But as far as being led by principals, I've only had three.
Mhm.
Um so I'm curious to know what is your best experience where you felt I'm being led by a leader. I'm being led by somebody who takes the reign instructionally and operationally, and I know exactly what their plan is. And also, what is the other spectrum? Like, what is your worst experience where you where you think like, what are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah. Um.
Let's start with
I'll
the
start with
worst.
the. Oh, I was gonna start with the best. Okay, I'll need to start with the good. Um. The worst was I think he was just our principal for 6 months, and when he transitioned into the school, he basically said, "I don't care what the other principal said. This is my house now." So we're like, "Whoa, that's not a good way to start a meeting." Like we were both like, all of us were in shock, right?
Yeah.
Like, but basically that's how it was handled. Like it's my way or the highway, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this principal also like fell asleep in the middle of my, like we were doing Romeo and Juliet. How do you fall asleep in Romeo and Juliet without saying names? He fell asleep during my one of my observations, like my final one when we
Yeah.
were doing Romeo and Juliet. You
Yeah.
remember that?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun, right? Like they're acting out Shakespeare for crying out loud, right? Like
Well,
unless it's like,
if people know me out there, they know that Shakespeare is not my thing.
but when we
But
did it
I
in the
get it that it's
classroom,
fun.
it was fun.
Yeah, for
We
sure.
gave you foam swords for crying out loud. But like we were acting out a little scene, and then we went back and we did had
Hmm.
discussions. But like yeah, like that was probably one of the worst experiences, other than being micromanaged by a few, right? Like I think they lacked trust in my work,
Hmm.
and I really didn't feel cared about as an individual. Um, so that feeling of not being cared about, like it translates into the work that you do,
Yeah, for sure.
like for
For sure.
sure, right?
Hmm.
Like it and that,
Happy teachers, happy students.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I was like, if my manager doesn't trust me, if my manager doesn't care for me as a person, then what am I doing here?
Hmm. Yeah.
And those were the worst experiences, right? Like where just a leader's blatantly like it's my way or the highway,
Hmm.
and or like now the other ones are just not caring for you as a person, or
Hmm.
your health, your mental health. Like it's like, "Ooh, are you going to be here? If
Yeah.
not, like what are you going to do then? What's your
Hmm.
plan if you're not going to be here?"
Yeah.
Right? And during that time there was a lot of like personal stuff going on with me, like health wise, and
Hmm.
I didn't have that support from my administrator.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that wasn't good.
Yeah.
But the best administrators that I've had, one of them I'll just I will say his name. His name was Matt Kyle. He Matt Kyle. We both started as in the same school. Well, like when I first started at the school, he was our principal in residence, so he's training to be a principal for this
Okay.
public charter. Um, and then he actually got the school. Like when the principal transitioned out,
Hmm.
he got the school.
Nice.
And he became our leader. He was great in creating systems and operations and procedures. He was a great planner. Like, and also when it came to coaching, he knew that I was struggling with writing action steps,
Hmm.
and he's like, "Here, like I created this action step. Like, think of the T
Hmm.
test." He's like, "Just what you're working on. This is a step broken down,"
Hmm.
and he gave me the plan, execute, model. So
Hmm.
any action step that you give a teacher, you can do it in three ways. It starts with the planning. What are the teacher going to do for planning? Next, how are they going to execute?
Hmm.
Right? What are the processes that they're going to include in the are they going to show an anchor chart to execute? Are they going to ask questions to execute? And then finally, what's the follow up? The follow up is, are you going to see that they're aggressively monitoring?
Hmm.
Are you going to see that they are asking the right questions, see if are bubble kids or whatever group that you're targeting, right?
Hmm.
That model just really pushed my instructional coaching.
Yeah.
And to me, yes, he gave me the basis, like the like where to start to
Yeah.
write action steps, which are really hard to write
Hmm.
because they have to be bite sized, right?
See.
And then he also gave me that great structure, the plan, execute, and follow up model that I still use to this day. Like I think about, okay, what's the plan? How am I going to execute, and how can I follow up to make sure that the kids got it right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And with that, that was it. Like
Hmm.
I was like, wow,
Like
like
what?
I was like breakthrough, right? And
Yeah.
by far, he was super supportive.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he was super supportive. He um, believed in me. He trusted in the work that I do. Um, he would always like give me praise
Hmm.
because, yeah, like I don't need praise all day, right? Or all the time. Like I think as
I think
individuals,
everybody does.
but you do like you
Yeah.
like hearing that you're doing a
Hmm. For
great job.
sure. For sure.
You like knowing that
Even
you're,
if I'm not, lie to me.
yeah, like tell me
Tell
something
me.
nice, damn it,
give me
right?
a give me a glow, but don't forget my glow.
Glow first, though. But yeah, no, he definitely would make sure that I would get that praise, and I'll never forget that he's like, your strength is connecting with people. So
Hmm.
I'm always going to use you to connect with people. So I would do a lot of the presentations to the parents because
Yeah.
they would connect with me,
Yeah.
and if they could
Hmm.
connect with someone in the school in the leadership team,
See.
like we got our school down, right?
Nice. Yeah.
And he always said like when you are a principal, you hire based on the your needs, right? Like so if you need someone that's good in special education, right? Because you're not strong, you
Hmm.
hire that person.
See.
If you need someone that's good with connecting, good with building relationships with parents, hire that person. That was
Yeah.
me. So his team had like a strength in them, and
Yeah.
together we became a powerhouse team. And I
Nice.
think that's why, like, I think of him as one of the best leaders, because
Mm-hmm.
that's really great advice when, one day if I were to become a principal,
Mm-hmm.
like, I want a powerhouse
Is that
team.
the goal though?
I don't know, Fatih. I don't
What's
know.
the goal? You're 20 years in. You've had.
Retire at 55. I got 15 years to go.
Is that your retirement age?
Yeah, because I'm grandfathered.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
I
cool.
started
That's
in
cool.
2004.
Can you believe I still have 33 years to
Oh
go?
no, I
I
feel
have
sorry for you.
33.
That's a long time.
That's my exact age now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I started teaching at 21,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
remember? So I
See,
started
see, see.
teaching real little. So my retirement age is 55.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, so
But
I have
you still
you
got a
got
long way
15
from
more
now.
years. So what do
But
I want to do in those 15 years?
what's the
Um,
goal? What does Eunice Canales want to do? And that you can back. There's this. I learned this from Dr. Bowles.
uh-huh.
That there's this Italian philosopher Adriana Cavavero who believes in that narrative life, right? And so that at the end of your life you can turn around and tell your story.
Hmm.
And what is in her profession? What is the Eunice Canales climax of the story? Where do you want to be?
I think I'm pretty transparent with what I want to do with my future. Um, I think like ultimately I would love to either work in like an organization, an educational organization where I get to train teachers. I love training.
Mm-hmm.
I love developing professional development.
Mm-hmm.
I love presenting to teachers. I love being of service, right? Like if they
Mm-hmm.
need me to go teach them something, like I'll
Mm-hmm.
be there. Ultimately, like, or a consultant, right? Like
Yeah.
have my own teaching consulting firm.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would be great. Like that
Yeah.
would be the dream, right? But would I want to be a principal? Maybe, like
Mm-hmm.
maybe, but I don't think at a high school. I think I would try a middle school first, even
Okay.
though I know it's heavily star.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty good with stars, so I'm not
Awesome.
I'm not afraid of that challenge. I don't think I'm afraid of any challenges. Like
Good.
like at the public charter, I think it just made me really brave because I
Mm-hmm.
did everything.
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
when people would leave the job, I would have to pick it up.
Yeah.
Like one time, our testing coordinator.
Yeah.
So I was the
So
testing
somebody has to do it.
coordinator.
It still has to get done.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
has to be
Those are the
done.
stories that people don't always
Yeah.
talk about, but
So
it
I
has to get
did it.
done. Yeah.
When the counselor had to leave early, right? She resigned a little bit earlier. I had to step in as a little bit of a
Mm-hmm.
counseling thing, right? So like you have to do all these different roles in education where you have to
Mm-hmm.
fill the need, right?
Yeah.
So I'm definitely not afraid of whatever
Mm-hmm.
position is next for me,
See.
even if it's principal or
Mm-hmm.
assistant principal or dean.
Yeah.
But now for a public school, like I'm definitely not afraid, but like I don't know. Like right now I'm just really happy. I'm really enjoying being semi in the classroom
Mm-hmm.
and doing the counseling aspect. I was just like, man, I should have gone into counseling. I know if I were to tell my brothers and sisters, I was like, I'm gonna go back to school. They're like, stop. Like they always tell me, stop. I was like, I think I'm gonna get my doctorate. They're like, stop
Do it.
already. I don't know. Like right now, I think I just need to take it slow. I
See.
think for the past 7 years, at the public charter, it was just there were some really hard times,
Mm-hmm.
and I am really enjoying the peace that I
Mm-hmm.
have found back at my old campus
Yeah.
where I first started, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm back home is
Awesome.
what my
Mm-hmm.
principal says, come back home, and I did. So
Awesome.
I'm back home and I'm just super comfortable, like, and super happy with this new role that I'm doing. I
See.
think it has a little bit of everything. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing the counseling side. I'm doing um the teaching side with this new class.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing the testing side, right, as well when it comes to TSI. So,
Mm-hmm.
definitely new, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why it's so exciting because it's still so new to me because
See.
CCMR is not big in the public charters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you already know it's
Mm-hmm.
in that
Yeah.
school. There's
It's
one thing, and
it's
that's it.
100% college acceptance.
Right.
Yeah. 100%.
Okay, you kind of gave it off what the school is. Thank you so much.
Is the thought school?
That's school.
Este, because I'm really excited that we have people like you trying to go into leadership, specifically, like instructional leadership, which I always emphasize to be one of the things that are needed. We have
Mm-hmm.
operational leaders, we have plenty,
Mm-hmm.
plenty, plenty. We need more instructional leaders, people who can push instruction to the next level. and we also need more women in the instructional field.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, I have the pleasure, the honor to work under a superintendent and under a deputy superintendent who are
Mm-hmm.
both women, and they have such phenomenal ideas because they see things from a different perspective
Mm-hmm.
because they've gone through the struggle of climbing the ladder of in a world that's mainly dominated still
Mm-hmm.
by male figures. They get to lead us with a different perspective, and it's just amazing to see, and we get to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that that's the route you want to take because you're paving the way for other girls behind you, other women behind you to say, "I'll do that." Like,
Yeah, she can do it. Why
yeah,
can't
uh huh.
I?
I want to do that, just like that
Mm-hmm.
male teacher that you saw,
Mm-hmm.
and you said that's who I want to be. That male principal that you saw, and you said that's who I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's gonna say, "I want to be that."
Never thought
Like,
of it that way.
yeah,
You never know your impact, right?
you never
You
know the
never know.
impact that you
Yeah.
have. Yeah,
I'm just here doing my job.
exactly. But you
You
have,
think you're just doing your job, right? But
yeah,
then you don't think about like
so many people
the
that are going
lives
to be
that you're
looking at you.
touching, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So I'm really proud of all the things that you're doing and all the things that you plan on doing and that I know that you're going to accomplish because that's who you are. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's who you are as a person. You're a go-getter. You do things, you keep moving, and you find the way, and that's just really what defines you as a person. Um, I want you to think of what would be three pieces of advice that you would give uh, women in the field of education trying to go into leadership.
I think one of it is just embracing the discomfort, right? Like you're gonna go through a lot of uncomfortable moments, a lot of moments where like it's kind of like imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Like, am I really qualified to do
Mm-hmm.
this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but then like you just have to think, hell yeah, I'm qualified.
Yeah.
Like, you have to remind yourself that you are qualified to do whatever you there's a reason why you got hired there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why people believe in you, right? So I think that negative self-talk needs to stop,
Yeah.
and you need to embrace being uncomfortable with situations, and then stop the imposter syndrome, right? Like, you are good, and I
Mm-hmm.
still have the imposter syndrome sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're transitioning to a new role.
Yeah.
I'm like, do I know this? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm just like, I'm gonna figure it out,
See, I just
and then I'm
apply.
gonna
I don't
become an
know.
expert. Like, I'm just gonna do that,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, definitely, I had that imposter syndrome earlier this year, but now I can talk in
Yeah.
circles about CCMR now,
Awesome. Yeah.
right? Like now that I know it and
Mm-hmm.
I lived it, right?
See.
Definitely that's one. And then two, just you know, venture out. Like, you don't have to stay in the same area. You can leave to a different school district, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can leave to grow. Like, you have to think about what your goal is, and what where you're going to be able to achieve that goal.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it means leaving for a little bit and coming back like I did,
Yeah.
like, that's what it takes, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I think just, being able to venture out, just to be able to do what you need to do to grow, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to do in your professional life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then I think the last one is just remember that you were a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think a lot of people that tend to become bigger
Mm-hmm.
things in education tend to forget, like, what it was like to be a teacher
See.
when you
You
were
see.
that first year teacher,
Mm-hmm.
even year two, and then
Yeah.
year three. I think we all start to feel a little bit comfortable. Like,
Mm-hmm.
continue to not only grow as a leader, but grow as a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
even if it means getting into the classroom sometimes,
See.
even if it means going to these trainings that you know nothing about, but
Mm-hmm.
you know what, I'm going to learn something new.
Mm-hmm.
I think always just willing to learn when it comes to the education field, and never forget
Yeah.
that first
Yeah.
year teacher, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Uh-huh.
think that's what stayed in me. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
never forgot what it was like to be a teacher,
Yeah.
ever. So when I was coaching, or when I was an assistant principal, it's like, I remember what it felt like being a first year teacher.
Yeah.
So how am I going to help this first year teacher, get better?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I was like, I remember feeling overwhelmed trying to learn everything. So how am I going to make it simpler for my teacher to learn, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that way it's not threatening.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that as a leader, just in general, not just for women, just in
In
general,
general, yeah, in
like
general. I
we
know
all
I
need
said
to.
for women, but I think that all the advice that you have given today applies to anybody.
Hmm.
Like anybody trying to move up, because again, we're trying to diversify leadership, um, and to accept everybody as a leader, even if innately that they don't want to move into a
Hmm.
leadership position. A lot of our teachers are leaders within their classrooms,
Yep.
and they need to hear again these things about being themselves, about trusting their worth instructionally, and trusting their
Hmm.
worth in classroom. Because we could have teachers who are fantastic at classroom management, then let's capitalize on that. And
Hmm.
let's be the best at classroom management. If you know that reading language arts is not your thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
at least be a great classroom management.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's important. It's important. And Mr. Juan Salinas was here a couple of weeks ago,
Hmm.
and we talked about year one, and we talked about how bad I feel for those things that I taught
Me
in year one,
too.
dude. It's
I was
like,
like, I guess we're gonna read this book. Like, I feel bad too, but then I do talk to your first year kids, and you're
mhm.
like, you know what, I did do something right
Yeah,
after
yeah,
all,
yeah.
right?
It's like I remember the whole teaching theme. Like nobody understands how hard it actually is to
Yeah.
teach theme. Like a lot of people think it's just to check the box and, oh, I taught it today. There you go. They should get it for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
No, sir.
No.
Like you have to. It's in so many different contexts, so
Mm-hmm.
many different things. I remember teaching theme, and we finished the story. I think if it was in story of an hour, we were probably reading on the sidewalk bleeding, either one of those two.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about theme, and so a kid gives me a response, and I have to look at my notes. Yep.
You are absolutely right.
That's one of them.
Yes. Who else? Who else?
Who? Let's put it to a vote. Who thinks he's right?
Give me a thumbs up if you agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Uh,
yeah, it's for sure like you have to um think of year one and how crappy it was and keep that when you're coaching, right? Like even if it's 20 years down the line, you have to remember that how you started
yeah.
and how hard it was.
Same.
And especially teaching concepts that are
Mm-hmm.
complex like theme,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
And be the
you
leader you wish you had.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I was listening to another podcast. But I just want to add this.
How dare you?
Ah, sorry. So there was these two people talking about education, and they were saying just because you manage children does not mean you're going to manage adults.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think that leadership might be their thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but I don't know what motivates them. You have to think what motivates you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you in it for the right reasons?
Mm-hmm.
And are you willing to be able to learn how to manage adults?
Mm-hmm.
Because it is so different.
It is. It
And
absolutely. I think it's harder.
it is harder.
Yeah.
It is. At first I was just like, it's because it's common sense. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
they're like they're still learning.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not
Mm-hmm.
common sense to them
Mm-hmm.
as a first year teacher,
See.
right? And you have to tell them, you no, you can't do
Mm-hmm.
that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I really like that. I was like, that's true. A lot of people think that just because they can manage children,
Mm-hmm.
that we can go into leadership roles, like and be an assistant principal or whatever the case might be. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just so hard and so difficult to manage adults.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that I was able to go through that experience
Yeah.
because that's how I grew as a leader. And when I came back, like to the school that I'm at, the teachers that now see me that were there when I left, they're like, "You're so different than you were before." I was like, "I grew." I was like, in the 7 years, I grew, and I
And
think
that's
that's
the idea, to
yeah,
grow.
yeah, like to be better, a better
Mm-hmm.
version of yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I did a lot of like reflecting and a lot of what do I need to do to be better,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And to help my teachers and to help my which translates to helping the children, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
See.
if your
See. See.
teachers are great, your children's are gonna be better, right?
See.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what you know I'm also stressing, right? Like that you have to just really be able to learn
Yeah.
from your mistakes and grow.
see, accepting that sometimes we're not
We're
perfect
not, and we're
either.
not the same people that we were when we started, like
Yeah.
year one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like some people are like, oh, I remember how she was in her second year of teaching.
See.
I was like, you get better. You get better,
Hopefully.
you grow. Yeah, right.
Uh-huh.
Unless you're forever a crappy teacher, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But but hopefully you get better, and you're in it for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm. And I refuse to believe still. I refuse to believe that there's people out there who say, you know what I'm gonna do today? I'm gonna ruin kids' lives. Like
I hope
I don't
not.
think so. I don't think so. I think people legitimately try. But like we talked about earlier, some people need more coaching than others,
Mhm.
and some people just don't know exactly how to help.
Mhm.
Like they landed a job because they were great at interviewing. They learned the right words. They spoke the right pieces, and
Mhm.
they got a job in teaching math.
Mhm.
To get this, another guest we had, Mr. George Valdez, talked about who am I going to teach math to? Just whichever kids live around the block.
Mhm.
Um, so it's you don't get to pick, um, and and sometimes I don't know how. Like I don't know how
Mhm.
to teach math, and so we have to help teachers also grow their capacity and their ability to teach
Mhm.
certain things to kids because they may be really smart and they may be really good at their own subject area,
Yeah.
but they may not be great at delivering it,
Mhm.
which I think is one of the things that we still have to work on all around. How
Yeah.
do we better serve kids? How do we grow as professionals and continue learning that we're not in the times where instruction is just delivery of instruction, when now we have to become facilitators of learning,
Mhm.
and accepting that first is it's a hard thing to do
Right.
because not everybody wants to give up or relinquish that authority in the classroom. We want to have a silent classrooms where everybody's just looking at me, listening to me. But that's not the way it works now.
No.
And we
Mhm.
have to make sure that the kids first we make a connection, and second that they care about the subject area that they probably don't care about.
I
So,
think what's also lacking, because I see it now, they think just because we have high school kids, they don't want to be celebrated. Like, I don't
mm-hmm.
see celebrations in the classroom anymore. Like,
Yeah.
think about when you were in elementary,
Mm-hmm.
like when your teacher was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, Patikati, learn
Mm-hmm.
read a book today," right?
See? Yeah.
And everyone would cheer and that kind of stuff. Like, I think as the kids are getting older, we tend to forget to celebrate the kids,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what brings joy in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you think it's like, oh, it's I gave them a bag of chips, that brings joy, or I rewarded them. No, it's like saying what they are doing well
Yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
doing those shout outs, because the kids thrive on those. I give my kids shout outs for completing sections or for showing improvement, even improving, because
Yeah.
that matters. And then we're all corny, we're like, everyone clap,
See?
and these are seniors,
I
right?
know, I
And they're
know.
and they're cheering
Dude,
for
if
each
we
other.
like it as
Yeah.
adults, I mean, we go bananas for teacher of the year. Like,
Yeah.
like we want to be recognized too. But and you're absolutely right. Sometimes
Yeah.
we forget that kids
Kids are still
also
kids, even though they're
and
18,
and that they
technically
love,
adults.
yeah, that they love recognition.
Yeah. Yep.
And I want to see my work displayed outside. I
Yes.
want to see. Yeah, I want to be celebrated for the book I read. I never thought I was gonna be able to read Romeo and Juliet, and I finished it with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, and that's the stuff that is also, I feel, is lacking in the high school classrooms.
Mhm.
There is no, and celebrations don't take long. Just take 5 minutes of your day. That's
Mhm.
5 minutes where you get to, celebrate kids and what they're doing well.
Mhm.
And, kids want to be celebrated. So they're
See.
going to work hard
Yeah.
to be celebrated, right? Like, I just saw how that translates in my own classroom this year.
Mhm.
Because I know that when I was a teacher, I didn't 7 years ago,
See.
I didn't do that very well.
See.
And now I do it well,
Mhm.
right? Because I
Yeah.
made sure I called them Fridays.
Fry. Yay!
Yay! It's Friday shout outs.
Yeah. Shout out! I love that. I
So
love that. That's my new thing.
I coined it. But it was like Friday shout outs. And that's when I shout out that how the kids did well during the week and how
Mhm.
they've improved. And these seniors are like, Miss, you forgot to shout me out. I was like, I didn't check the report yesterday.
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes you're
Mhm.
behind. But I was like, I'll shout you out on Monday.
See.
It's like, but it's not going to be Friday. I was like, I
Yeah.
know, but we'll get you on Monday.
Well, yeah. It would be Monday.
Yeah. And then Monday. I like that.
Ms. Canales, it's been a pleasure having you here.
Likewise.
It's been amazing. The conversation is great. I hope everybody out there is enjoying it.
Yeah.
Um, if you made it this far, don't forget to follow, like, and share with somebody because again, I mean, at least I have a lot of fun with these
Me
conversations. I'm
too.
pretty sure somebody's gonna enjoy it.
I hope so.
So don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can continue hearing our conversations. Hit that like button so that we can get a couple more views and share with your friends.
Yeah,
It's
let's get to 50.
yeah, let's get to it. We're at 27
I
today.
know, you
27,
see?
yeah,
It's
27
growing, it's
subscribers. I
growing.
know. Well,
You're
we'll
gonna
get
get
there.
famous.
We'll get there one day.
Yeah, one day. You have to bring me back again.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Please, please. Like, I
Yeah.
would love to have you back. And like, we have, I think, so many topics to discuss.
Yeah,
We have so
for
many
sure.
topics to talk about. The other day I was thinking, like, when we were planning out, because I don't know if um like, we talked about it first. I know
Mhm.
we got together, we talked about it. Then I texted you, "Hey, you mean for real?" Because
I was like,
I
"Yeah,
want to,
I'm down."
because I
Yeah.
want to have you over. And then thinking of the topics, like so many things came to my head, but I felt leadership and your leadership story is something that people need to know.
Mhm.
So I'm glad you were here. I'm glad you were able to join us,
Thank you for having me
and that
here.
we're having this
Yeah.
conversation. And I hope we can see each other again soon.
Yes, for sure. I'm down. I will love to come back again
Let's do it
with a different topic,
with a different topic.
not about the blue school. We're not gonna talk about that
Yeah,
anymore.
we're gonna stop blue school. We're gonna
No.
stop blue school. That's a great idea.
No.
Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.